Karen's son demanded my Lambo. He got arrested as I showed I own his block. The sun hung low over Willow Creek, painting the cul-de-sac in a warm, deceptive glow. I leaned against my Lamborghini, its black curves gleaming like a panther in repose. 3 years of grinding coding late nights, pitching to investors, and dodging failure had landed me this car and the deed to half this block. But peace? That was harder to come by. Across the street, Karen's voice sliced through the evening calm. "That car should be my son's," she shrieked, her blonde bob bouncing as she jabbed a finger at me. Her son, Dylan, barely 25, lounged against their porch railing, smirking like he'd already won. The neighbors peeked from their windows, drawn to the spectacle like moths to a flame. Dylan sauntered over, his sneakers scuffing the asphalt. "Nice ride, man," he said, his tone dripping with mockery. "But it's wasted on you. Hand over the keys, and maybe I won't make this ugly." His eyes glinted with entitlement, the kind only a kid raised by Karen could muster. She'd spent years terrorizing the neighborhood, complaining about my late-night deliveries, my too loud music, my very existence. Now her son was her weapon. I raised an eyebrow, keeping my voice steady. "Dylan, you don't even have a license. What's this about?" Karen stormed forward, her face a mask of righteous fury. "You think you're better than us? Driving that flashy car, buying up our street like some big shot? My Dylan deserves that car more than you ever will." Her voice cracked, but her conviction didn't waver. The crowd grew, whispers rippling like wildfire. "Dylan deserves it?" I asked, my calm fraying. "He's been unemployed since high school, Karen. I worked for this." Dylan's smirk vanished. He stepped closer, his breath hot with cheap beer. "You calling me a loser? I'll take that car right now." He lunged for my keys, but I sidestepped, my heart pounding. The crowd gasped, phones already out, recording the chaos. "Back off," I warned, my voice low but firm. "You don't want this," Karen screeched. "You're nothing, a nobody who got lucky. Dylan, take it." Her encouragement was a spark to dynamite. Dylan shoved me, hard, and I stumbled against the Lambo's hood. Anger flared, but I held it in check. This wasn't just about a car, Anna Maria, it was about principle, about standing up to their relentless greed. Then, a twist. Mrs. Delaney, the quiet widow from next door, stepped forward. At 70, she was the last person I expected to intervene. Her voice, soft but steely, cut through the noise. "Karen, Dylan, you've gone too far. I've watched you bully the street for years. But you didn't know, did you?" She held up a manila envelope, her hands trembling but resolute. "He owns your house. Your tenants, not owners." The crowd fell silent. Karen's face drained of color. Dylan froze, his bravado crumbling. "What?" he stammered. Mrs. Delaney handed me the envelope. "I found the records when I was cleaning out my husband's office." "You bought their lease last year, didn't you?" she asked me, her eyes sharp with purpose. I nodded, stunned. I'd purchased several properties on the block through a blind trust, never checking the tenant details. Karen's house was one of them. The irony hit like a freight train. I'd been their landlord all along. I turned to Dylan, holding up the papers. "You want my car? How about you explain why you've been late on rent for 6 months?" The crowd erupted in murmurs. Karen's mouth opened, but no words came. Dylan's fists clenched, his face a storm of rage and humiliation. "You're lying," he roared, charging at me again. This time he swung. I ducked, and his fist grazed the Lambo's mirror, cracking it. The crowd gasped louder, and someone shouted, "Call the cops!" Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had already dialed 911. Minutes later, 2 officers pulled up. Dylan, still fuming, tried to spin a story about me stealing his car. But the neighbors, emboldened by Mrs. Delaney's stand, spoke up. "He attacked him," one shouted. "Karen egged him on," another added. The truth was undeniable, backed by a dozen phone videos. The officers cuffed Dylan as Karen wailed, her empire of entitlement collapsing. "You can't do this. He's my son," she screamed, but the cops were unmoved. Dylan's eyes met mine as they led him to the cruiser, a mix of defiance and regret flickering there. I felt no triumph, only a hollow ache. This wasn't victory, it was tragedy born of greed and pride. As the police drove off, Mrs. Delaney touched my arm. "You didn't have to show those papers," she said softly. "But you did what was right." Her words were a small balm, but they couldn't erase the weight in my chest. Karen stood alone on her lawn, sobbing, her neighbors turning away. The block I'd fought to build was fractured, not by my success, but by their resentment. I climbed into my Lambo, the cracked mirror a reminder of the cost. Driving away, I glanced back at the fading sunlight, the handwritten sign on the fence catching my eye. Greed tears us apart, whose side are you on? It wasn't just about Karen or Dylan. It was about all of us, about how envy and entitlement could poison a community. The car's engine roared, but my thoughts were louder. I'd won, but at what price? Karen's downfall didn't feel like justice, it felt like a warning. We all have our demons, our desires that blind us to what's right. I'd fought for my dream, but I hadn't meant to break theirs. What do you think? Where does justice end and vengeance begin in a story like this?